your
And
thoughts about, I have mixed thoughts about protesting in church. I don't believe it's sinful. I just have mixed thoughts about the venue of protest. You know, I think it's good. I think it'd be a good, but I also think it could definitely distract from the gospel of Christ. I think, depending on how it's done. What if Muslims had an issue with something Christians were doing, and they busted up in your church service and started condemning something that they don't agree with? Would that be okay? So I'm not saying that they're wrong. I just don't know what would have been my method. But it
right,
does force the church to wrestle with who they say they are, who they say they serve, and the God that they claim to worship.
right,
It
right.
does make them, uncomfortable, and I am all for some holy uncomfortableness.
Yeah. I mean, I think extraordinary times like we are in call for extraordinary levels of protest. And if
Hmm.
you've got a pastor who is not just working for ICE, but he's in charge of
Yeah.
enforcement for Minnesota and multiple states around there, and
Hmm.
he is a ostensibly minister of the gospel, that dude does not understand the life
He doesn't
and
understand the
ministry
assignment.
and teachings of Jesus Christ, because Jesus was under an empire. And yeah, we're supposed to love our neighbors, but they called them and rebuked them,
Yeah.
that church. And when we get to a truncated fundamentalist fuckwittery later, we'll see just what kind of church that was
Well, and
when I get to that.
not only I will say that there is biblical context for what they did. There are many instances in the Old Testament of prophets showing up and giving these people what for. You know what I'm
Right,
saying? And then
right,
Jesus called them out in the New Testament. The scripture says in Acts 17:24 that God does not dwell in temples made with hands. And also, depending on how you look at it, Proverbs 24:11 says, rescue those being led away to death. There's a lot of scriptures that you could align with the church calling out the church. Basically, this was the church calling out the church.
right.
Most
Yeah,
of those folks that showed up, if not all of the folks that showed up for the protest, are Christians. So this is the church calling out the church. J.D. Vance, our so-called vice president, he blamed local leaders for violence that's tied to the federal immigration enforcement in Minneapolis, and completely glossing over the public safety concerns and what the context for these protests and outrages, as in these ICE agents violating the law, abusing the community, oppressing people's rights to peacefully protest and exercise their First Amendment rights. So just not even acknowledging that that's happening at all, which, what's her name? Noam, she doesn't acknowledge that they're doing that either. But so he's willfully dismissing the voices and people's right to do what ICE is trying to crack down on. And what's so crazy to me is you got Trump that's speaking out and making threats and bravado against Iran for cracking down on protesters. You're doing it right here too.
right.
You're
Yeah,
going to send our troops and our money and our ships and our whatever drones. I don't know what he's talking over there to protect protesters while you oppress and violate protesters' rights here.